Recording in progress.
Welcome to another edition of Consensus on
Reality. I was doing a French accent before the
very funny. Didn't need to be recorded. So
really
funny.
Very funny.
Too funny to record, to be honest.
Too funny for the ears of
Too good.
the people.
Your joke, though, from the last episode has been getting some traction.
It was a hit.
Yeah.
It was a hit. You told me I should have done it in a Rodney Dangerfield voice, and that's how I originally told it when it came to me. But that kind of takes away from the joke's own linguistic merit, you know.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, a couple of people had some notes in the Patreon comments.
Yeah,
well.
but those were not serious notes. I mean, I know what the joke is.
Why so serious?
Like the Joker. Yeah.
Yeah.
I watched Joker too. Did I already talk about that on the show?
When did you watch it?
I don't know. Sometime between now and then.
Oh, between now and the past.
And the past, yeah, and the sort of insurmountable hard rock of the past that we dig into, and we can't really get to anything because it's just too dense. Whereas the future is a beautiful horizon that is unobtainable and ever, backing off. Ever backing off.
Ever backing off. You're talking about the organic pulsation of the present into...
You just can't touch it.
The transcendental forever now.
But then then it's sort of shitted out into just this compact heap that we can look at and we stand on, but we can't dig into it, because it's just too hard. It's like rock.
Rock.
And that's the theme of today's episode, actually. We're going to be talking about
fool
stone.
These people. You've been leading them on with this.
Meat. The meat of the rock.
Meat rain.
I've actually been
Kentucky.
thinking about wands lately. You ever think about wands? And listen, this is not the place for a phallic or Harry Potter joke. Wands are serious. I finally found a copy of Joe Lantier's The Magician's Wand, A History of Magical Rods of Power. And been kind of paging through that. And it's really cool. And the way that they've kind of converged with weapons and swords and shit like that. I got it. It arrived on Christmas Eve, along with my new beautiful copy of Etidorpa. And so it was this nice double present. Wait, did I say New Year's Eve or Christmas?
I don't know.
What I meant is
listening.
You should listen because this applies to you.
Jeff Bezos, Rods of Power.
Jeff who? Bezos. What kind of name is that anyway?
Bezos?
Yeah.
Nordic. Tall,
you ever
white.
feel like these people are just pulling names out of some kind of magician's hat?
Yeah. Well, come on. Don't go down that rabbit hole.
I know. The elite.
Mystical toponymy?
The name game.
Are you trying to play the name game tonight?
I play it every day. I wake up and I say, what does that mean? Why is that a name that enters the mind?
Jeez, you could have written for Borderlands Sciences in the 1970s.
Yeah, that's a good
Well,
rag.
really, the name game thing is more of a Fortean journal.
Yeah.
More
of a let's say it's more well dressed than perhaps the Borderlands thing.
I think it goes the opposite. The Fortean
I was trying to say there's sort of like a fascistic element.
Yeah.
And the fascists notoriously dress quite well, except today, where they dress kind of sloppily. Just kidding. I don't know any fascists. I don't know what I'm talking about.
I thought you were going to go talking about the Hugo Boss uniforms, but
don't
go there.
Yeah. That's what I was kind of alluding to.
No, Mark, don't go there. It's my peep
William
show.
Dudley Pelly.
Yeah. Pelly, he kind of factors in a little bit Not that we need to talk about him because there's more interesting stuff, but on the last episode, we were chatting about A New Science of Heaven, a recent book in the past couple of years by Robert Temple, talking about plasma physics,
Yeah.
plasmoidal emanations, and how they relate to ufological phenomena. I was listening to an audio of The Cosmic Pulse of Life from 1976 by one
There's an audiobook.
Trevor James Constable. There is, yeah.
Nice. Is it well done?
Yeah, it's excellent. Actually, yeah, we're opening up the year with some really good stuff. Invigorating the ufological
Yeah.
terrain. It's nice to backtrack and find some opinions that, you know, are pretty sound and tie together some interesting theories, cite some interesting things that we'll talk about a little bit tonight.
We got to be careful though,
Why is that?
because if we're not careful, we might end up on a round trip to hell in a flying saucer.
Fair enough.
By Cecil Michael, published by Vantage Press in the 1950s. This is a autobiographical novel about Cecil Michael's encounter during a leisurely afternoon at his auto repair shop. Um, and a UFO comes and takes him to hell and then back again.
Son of a bitch.
Whether hell is, yeah, it makes the trip from California to hell. There's
Shucks.
some beautiful illustrations in here too. Anyway, it's another Vanity Press UFO title, which are kind of becoming my, you know, bread and butter in terms of the personal collection.
I know. I'm building up my own little wish list of some titles that I would like to acquire, but you know, they're books that have been on the radar of other people as well, so they can be a
That's
little
always
little
annoying.
pricey. Yeah.
That's why you want to be a freak who has interests that nobody else could possibly. But then you find out that there's at least a couple hundred other freaks like you, and
That's enough.
like, and then you hate them. You're like, you're like me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I mean, most of these books will get pressed like 300 copies, so
right.
you're
Yeah.
fucked either way.
I would love a copy of the original Visitors from Lanulos by, oh no,
Darren
Woody
Berger.
Derenberger.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would love that. I got one out from the library when I was in college and scanned it, and nobody had ever, and I sent it around.
Hmm.
I shouldn't say that, but it's true.
They're gonna
Well, no,
get you.
they're all dead. It
Yeah.
was a public service. That book's weird. What else is on your radar right now in the UFO book world?
Well, I referenced in The Cosmic Pulse of Life is Etheric Ships by Mead Lane, who started Borderland
Yeah,
Sciences Research Associates.
yeah, yeah,
And that's kind of like a private press, self-published thing, which can
yeah.
be a little pricey, but he's really the
What's it called?
godfather. It's Etheric Ships. Um,
Yeah.
he's kind of like the progenitor of the, I don't know, the interdimensional hypothesis, I guess.
What is it? The Ether Ship Mystery?
Maybe, yeah. It's probably got a lot of these books
Right.
have a couple titles.
This was from BSRA. What is that? The
Borderland
Bureau
Sciences
of
Research
Oh, it's
Associates.
yeah, right. It's yeah. Borderline Personalities,
Yeah.
Science Associates. Right. Macer's story was out. Never mind. I have to stop. Macer's story was published in there quite a bit.
Yeah, this Trevor James stuff really rounds back to Giant Rock as well. We
Hmm.
talked, uh, we talked Gray Barker at Giant Rock on a recent episode, going to one of George Van Tassel's legendary UFO conventions at the makeshift landing strip at Giant Rock in Joshua Tree, the Mojave Desert. There's a famous photo, actually, if you look up Giant Rock, and it's like a organic cloud type formation photographed
Yeah.
above Giant Rock at one of the UFO conventions. That's a Trevor James Constable image. What I really like about this book is that, well, there's a few things I really like about it, but one of them is it's very practical in its methods of interacting with and documenting the phenomena. Like there's a lot of photographic techniques, and he basically lays out the parameters for shooting this, what kind of camera, relatively inexpensive 35 millimeter camera to use, and how to do it. And it's pretty cool because he's kind of laying, with some almost like ceremonial magic type preparatory parameters that he lays. And we could get into that and George Van Tassel and the
Yeah.
kind of psychic phenomena involved here. But once he starts photographing this stuff, he's talking with using infrared film. He's talking about how it's almost like looking at under a microscope, like looking at pond life under a microscope. That there are so many of these sky creatures or critters, as he calls them, in the atmosphere, not visible to the naked eye, but visible when you're viewing them under certain parameters using certain tools. Doesn't that conjure, quantum physics stuff as well, right?
Yeah. I mean, it sounds so much like the stuff that Temple is describing in his book.
Yeah.
Although I guess, I mean, the naked eye visibility versus not, it's very much kind of in the same wheelhouse. And so you wonder, I mean, I haven't finished the Temple book yet, but I'm like more than half of the way through, a couple, three quarters almost. And I don't think he's mentioned Constable yet. Does he? Does it come up?
He does not mention Constable. However,
Yeah.
in Constable's book, 1976, he's talking about these. I mean, are we gonna? It's complicated. It makes you think about the UFO thing in an interesting way, where there's this whole ecology to it. Where on one side, a lot of the observed phenomena is certainly black projects, actual mechanical craft, for sure. But then there's also this whole question of, are these things that are being witnessed on radar through infrared film, and sometimes, with the naked eye, are they an entity? Is it a representation of a consciousness, or is it some sort of, orgone, energy, plasma vessel? These are the types of things that he's speculating in this book. But yeah, the language that he uses is like plasma pulsation. So, it's
Hmm.
directly related to the Temple book in
Yeah.
that way, for sure.
Yeah. And he kind of falls in my mind into that weird little Reichian ufology school, which I think it might just be him and the other guy, Jerome Temple,
Oh,
who
Mead
has a couple
Lane,
books. Mead Lane, right?
for
Is he?
sure.
And then, yeah, that kind of, yeah, thinking of the UFO thing is almost a natural phenomenon that we haven't quite like grasped yet because it's using a realm of, the natural world that we aren't familiar with, which I guess is kind of what the nuts and bolts explanation is too, in a way. But this feels more like it's a weird combination of the interdimensional explanation with the nuts and bolts like aliens explanation. So it's kind of satisfying in that way.
Yeah, there's concepts of plasma physics, exobiology, like a new biology. He also cites, let's see, who wrote Ivan T. Sanderson, who was the biologist who wrote
Yeah,
Uninvited Visitors.
the man.
He was a biologist who turned his eye to the UFO phenomena and wrote Uninvited Visitors. And there's some interesting sightings in there that are like biological UFO sightings, which conjures, again, it conjures that um, retrieval scene in Diana Pasulka's American Cosmic as well, when she's
Sure.
talking about, being brought to the site and seeing the remnants of a craft and describing it almost like the exo skin or skeleton of like a reptile or something.
Yeah.
There's a sighting mentioned in there that is like essentially this dude is talking about looking at this giant entity that is emitting a very bright spectrum of light, but it also kind of looks like a mollusk or something.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah.
That kind of, and I guess, I mean, Sanderson was huge. He was either the founder or co-founder of Pursuit and the Society for the Investigation of the Unexplained, Situ. Um, and so, yeah, he lends a certain scientific something to the whole, like, investigation. But have you ever paged through any issues of Pursuit? I feel like that's one of the ways that you find these crazy, like, explanations that almost like were selected out from the popular conversation. Like, but that, returning to now, you're like, oh, this is like revelatory, like, Cosmic Pulse of Life, which I feel like still has kind of a pulse of life to it. Like people still read it.
It's a very
Um,
yeah, it's got a special place in at
yeah,
least the collector's hearts.
for sure.
But I think that means that it's got a special place in its regard and its unique perspective. Um, it it brings to mind an interesting part of the conversation in that Constable in this book is talking about the invention of radar technology and starting with the cavity magnetron, which was, I think, a British device, which was early radar. But that once we started to develop radar, I guess during World War II, and use it, that it kind of opened Pandora's box in terms of all these things popping up on radar that we, don't see with
Right.
the naked eye. Um, and that, I mean, if you've seen the Tic Tac video,
TikTok.
the gimbal, what is it called? It's just called the gimbal.
I don't know. It's two like really funny names.
Yeah. The gimbal, and then the other one is like the wow, or no, not the wow.
Gimbal and Grush and Greer.
Gimbal gross. Yeah, it's like fucking troll names or something.
Steve is like Steve Brule.
Uh-huh. Yeah, but if you like, that's a radar video. And
Yeah.
you got to wonder, like, if you look at Blue Book, how much of the phenomena is radar based? If
Hmm.
like, even, I pulled a sighting because of its name game associations to something I wrote in Journal of Shells 2. But it was all radar based. And, I think that's interesting because it's not really satisfying to most rubberneckers of the UFO phenomena, like people who are casually dipping their toes in to the UFO thing, just as a public spectator or public intrigue or whatever. Like, I
Right.
don't think it's satisfying to most people to understand that most of this phenomena is documented on radar, because when we look at that, it's not really like mind blowing. Most people are like, oh,
Yeah.
this looks like a little blotch on a two
Right.
tone piece of film or whatever. But it creates that fertile ground for the narrative. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think of that? Like, thinking about how most of this has been, you know,
Mm.
not like 70 years of documentation. And I guess I have to assume like at least 80% of it is fucking if you're like the actual photographic
Right.
evidence, like at
Like the
least
stuff that makes it in. Yeah.
80% has to be radar, right? Probably
I don't
more.
know.
I'm not talking about testimony. I'm talking about
Right.
like documentation.
Like the photo. Well, I mean, if it's the government,
Yeah.
they're going to be using the tools that they have. So the military people are going to be using radar and like the kinds of weird cameras that are situated on planes, like stuff like that. So I think that that's part of just like that's the tools that they have, and so that's what they're using.
But in the Constable case, it's also the best way. Like he's making
Right. It's
the
probably a
case
better.
that
Yeah.
it's the only way to truly document it
Right.
because it's like you have to use a kind of multispectral imaging because the way that our eyes work, it's not in our periphery to actually visualize this dimension of physics or whatever.
Right. For sure. Yeah. It's kind of yeah. Like they were discovered after we had invented this radar technology is an interesting theory. Like almost like we uncovered. It's almost like an opposite or like a related theory to the nuclear explosion thing, where we had this revolutionary technology that gave us access to these things, but like in a less violent way, whereas they were like kind of always there. And in this case, I don't know. Yeah, I think it's interesting. But also, like you were saying, it's kind of underwhelming, I guess, that versus like the really colorful testimonial encounters where it's a person sort of telling this yarn about spacemen and stuff like that versus like the stuff that ends up in Blue Book or the stuff that ends up in the later kind of compendia of UFO encounters. They're often, and obviously people are giving more credence to the military encounters, which I think might be worth questioning a little bit, except for the fact that the instruments are so much better and the people are often trained to be observant. So, yeah, but
Mm.
be that as it may, I think that that might also limit I think that the phenomenon itself is probably interactive in some sense. Even if it is like these plasma entities, I think that they're probably conscious in some sense. I mean, we're very often speculation here, but
Well, there's a lot of
I
that too, and we'll
yeah.
circle back to that point. Put a pin in it, as they say. But
Ow.
um, I mean, if you're like thinking about the Elizondo Arrow stuff, the more boring stuff, like you have to also assume probably that maybe the stuff that fits more in this plasmoidal sky critters type sightings, like I wonder if that's even labeled pertinent. Like the Arrow stuff, like there's probably a folder for
X-Files?
drones, balloons,
Yeah.
and like spycraft stuff that is obviously more important to them. And then there's probably like blob. I don't know what that is. We're putting that in the basement.
With Fox Mulder.
Yeah,
I don't know. Because weren't they researching like Skinwalker Ranch and werewolves and stuff? Like I feel like they've got a lot of boxes and all the boxes get funding to some degree.
that's Bigelow's stuff, and who know?
That's
Like
true.
nobody knows what happened to that. Well, Bigelow knows what happened to it, but he didn't turn over that stuff to what's our boy's name? The guy who bought it.
Oh, I don't even remember anymore. Brandon Fugel.
Fugel. Yeah, nice pull. Damn. Dusting the cobwebs off on that one.
Does he still own it?
Yeah. As far as I know, I feel like you would have heard if he sold it. That would have been pretty fun.
Yeah.
Pretty quick turnaround. You know.
He's like, I can't. I need to. I'm gonna flip. What if he flipped it? He like put down like gray faux wood and
What
then
do you mean?
flipped
There's
it.
no digging here. I was gonna build a Ferris wheel.
Uh,
Yeah. That would be interesting to see that actual, that evidence and documentation and all that research
mhm.
and the data. Um, but who knows? I don't know. That's packed away for Bigelow's own intrigue, and that's it, I guess.
I kind of love that Skinwalker Ranch became the next Oak Island. It's just going to be this never-ending thing. Like they're never going to find the gold. They're never going to find anything.
Yeah.
It's just like once in a while something weird's going to happen that they can use to create another episode, and that's it. Nobody's ever going to solve them. It's kind of they're like these puzzle boxes.
Yeah. What do you what do you think of this? It got my wheels kind of turning. The idea that like the UFO is like a mythopoetic hyper object of the atomic age, right? That's kind of the Jungian thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's, a university explanation of the UFO phenomena that's become pretty popular. It kind of seems like the way that our technology is advanced, if they are still documenting this stuff with radar and actually like having a legitimate task force for it, there has to be some really good documentation of it, right? And I guess in a way, that's what the gimbal footage might be the culmination of if you're an optimist.
I'm not.
Yeah. But you would think that there would be some way to present this in a compelling fashion if they actually wanted to, with the advancements in, multispectral imaging and photographic technology, infrared and radar and all that business. But also, like, it got me thinking about this too. Like, so if the UFO is the mythopoetic symbol of the atomic age, can you like root out a symbol that has arisen of the information age? Or is the
Yeah.
information age not visual? Is it more like a hall of mirrors of ideas of language? Um,
Sure.
because if that's true, then maybe we've lost the inability to like manifest some sort of like visual symbol for the age that we're in, and there's a fragmentation of language or something.
There's definitely a fragmentation of language. And yeah, I'm trying to think of I mean, if we assume that the Jungian interpretation is actually generated by a collective unconscious, like in a creative, like generative way, where instead of like, I don't know, being revealed or something like dug up. I don't really know how, yeah, if we're creating it positively, yeah, I don't think that we have a coherent, I think, yeah, the information age has done away with the need for such a thing because information is almost devalued to such an extent that what would that even look like, a whole like like
Hmm.
or like a mess. I don't know, like is Slender Man what we get, like there's sort of like what is like a popular myth that seems to have like taken on its own characteristics. I
The
mean there's so
automata,
many, yeah,
the,
but
the the artificial intelligence is what I thought of, but it's
it's
like
too multifarious.
yeah. So is a UFO though.
But at least it has a you can see it, like you can picture it. AI, you don't. Yeah, it's more of a feeling of uncanniness or something.
Yeah.
Maybe that's it. Just like the doppelganger could be the thing, or uh, a room with a bunch of mirrors.
Hmm.
I don't know. It's not looking good. It should be something like, I don't know, like a monster. It should be a big slimy bastard. That should be the image.
Slimy bastard. Um,
But yeah, I think we might not have one, or we have not been in this information age long enough. I mean, even though it's been a while, maybe I don't know. Fragmentation might be the answer there. Maybe a keen listener will have a suggestion.
yeah, for sure. It reminded me that conversation reminded me of Mariko Mori, the visual artist. I sent you
Oh yeah,
some stuff about her, who has done some architectural things and some sculptural things that have embodied that perfect form of the UFO as a sort of hyperobject of the age.
Hmm.
She also did a lot of other interesting work that was dealing with the role of women in in the modern era of Japanese culture. She's a really interesting artist, though. There's kind of some. She works with a lot of those mythopoetic symbols that are kind of act as like a universal visual language,
Yeah.
something that kind of communicates that universality of the age. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, to me, I think that I don't know, like the flying disc so perfectly represents a kind of like perfected vision of the future, like its sleekness,
Right.
its cleanliness.
Like the Cybertruck.
There's no exhaust. There's no,
Yeah.
like it's just like the Cybertruck.
It's like a soul.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just like it is the kind of like if we were in the youth and adolescence of the industrial age, like you're looking for the perfected machine.
Right.
So it is kind of the import of that perfected machine. It's almost like a utopian vision of technology,
Yeah.
um, which maybe could explain why it's such a popular image. I'm not breaking any ground by saying that, but yeah, it leads you to wonder like what could possibly be conjured out of um, the collective pleroma of the information age that would
Yeah.
communicate something like that.
I mean, I think it's something worth meditating on for sure. And also, it kind of my immediate reaction to that question is like, oh man, we're fucked. We have nothing. We're like, uh,
Armageddon. I mean, the eschatological imagery is, I think, an obsession
that's true.
of our age for sure.
As it is during any time of great change too, I think.
Yeah, yeah. It's not that original for sure.
We might be in the we might just be in this, but I don't know. I feel like we are really quick to think like, oh, it's over. Like we're devolving. Everyone like we're a step away from some kind of horrible incident. Climate change, like all of these things are very much like, pack your bags. And that's the kind of like the sentiment. But I feel like we've been there before, and I know that everything is like unprecedented now, and I'm not like being a denialist of any kind, but I just I don't know. I'm trying very hard to push against the Armageddon fetish of the moment because it's defeatist, and I'm saying this while one of the most iconic cities in the country is being burned to the ground
Yeah,
in a way that has not really happened before, and which seems to happen every year now. And this time it just struck the right place for
disaster.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And so, but I don't know. It's like I think asking the question of like what the image of our age is kind of asks like, well, like what actually defines our age? And I think it's like acceleration, I guess, not in like the reactionary political sense, but like velocity and acceleration seems to be like a key facet of whatever we're doing now.
yeah. I think I don't know. To me, disembodiment makes a lot of sense. Like the whole
True.
simulation hypothesis, unreality.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in a world that is like we're so overexposed to imagery. I
Yeah.
wonder if we've lost that emergent visionary quality temporarily or just disabled it, like
Yeah. I think we have. I don't think we have
yeah.
to wonder. I feel like I don't know. And a lot of people I know, I don't know. There's some weird stuff going on with like people's imaginative abilities, people's attention, and like so many people I know are experiencing it and everyone feels kind of weird to talk about it. Like everyone's like extremely fatigued and unable to concentrate or like read or think. And it's like everyone's like, yeah, it's just I'm on my phone too much. And I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
I think there's like I think the world might be a vampire.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good, yeah. We're hell yeah.
As a one-time guest of Alex Jones put it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's crazy. I'm reading Praiseworthy by Alexis Wright. She's a Australian Aboriginal novelist. One of my resolutions was to read like literary novels again this year and like
Mm.
try to do it. And this book's incredible. It's like a fever dream. But it's a lot about this one like Aboriginal guy. It's all set today. She keeps talking about Twitter and stuff, but he had this vision of like a silver donkey who is going to like after the world collapses because of like it's very on that sort of wavelength after the world collapses because of climate change and sort of accelerating pandemics and stuff. This guy's going to rebuild the world for his community, which is like a tiny town in northern Australia, uh, through this donkey messaging service. And so he's been combing the outback of Australia looking for this one donkey that he saw in a dream. And there's this cloud that embodies the ancestors hovering over their town.
Mm.
And it's like choking everybody because it's like smoke. And that's how far I've got so far. It's kind of like, but it's told in this very, very cool voice. So I recommend it. Yeah, Alexa's right. I think
Mm.
it's nice to read that kind of thing again. It's been a while, which is frustrating.
Yeah. I mean, there's obviously all the absurdity with the public spectacle crimes that are going on right now and people obsessing over the, unreal details of everything. But it kind of, like in a world where everyone has been trained to sort of become an actor, become a comedian, like through
Yeah.
the way that our phones broadcast ourselves into the world of information, like we've all kind of been trained to, on one level, become an actor or present ourselves in some way and have this referential frame of comedy and information and narrative, the narrative impulse. Like it shouldn't be surprising that the growing
Yeah.
absurdity of
It
public
is
spectacle.
it is growing more and more absurd. I'm like very nervous about what this second Trump term is going to bring in terms of the breakdown of
It's coming on
like
fast.
understandability of like the global state. Like, so maybe this is going to like set us up for like a return to a more grounded and realistic personal life. Like, like,
Wouldn't that
well,
be nice?
I try to look at this whole situation positively because where we were going before was going to be bad. Where that it was going to be bad, and where this is going might still be bad, might be worse. But what if it's better? Like that's, I'm
Hey,
trying to, I'm trying to think like that, because otherwise it's like, so I just have to assume that like sometime in the next 4 years I'm gonna die or something, like I
yeah,
just have
yeah.
to like that's how I
No
have to
fun.
live. Like I can't do, no one can do that. You just have to hope some things will get better, maybe like maybe blank. But
Yeah. Can you
I know that
imagine
it's
like
not like,
if your job was psyops now though? All you gotta do is like hit a
yeah,
button, press enter.
yeah,
30
you can
years
just
ago, you really had to put something together. You really had to
you can work
construct
from home
something. We're
now.
like, we've been working on this guy for 3 years.
Like Paul Benowitz, he had to like live across the street from him
Yeah.
and like shoot
Like
a
so much
beam at his
effort. Now
computer.
it's like shit happens and they're like, did we do that one? Let me check. No, we didn't do that one.
You could just like make a profile for, you don't even have to do it. You gotta have AI make a profile for like a beautiful woman and make this person go insane and then whatever. Like it's like I don't know. Yeah, it's all a big psyop, man.
Yeah.
That's how
Hell
I
yeah.
feel.
Hell yeah, brother.
I've been trying to get more superstitious. I've been carrying around
Trying to get super. I'm pretty superstitious always.
me too, but like I'm trying to like actually follow through on it. Like so I've been carrying around I'm like superstitious where like I won't mention something good that happens to
I'm
me.
like superstitious. Yeah.
But now I'm trying to like have like old style like superstitious totems. So I'm carrying around a copy of Powwows or the Long Lost Friend. You know that one?
Mm-mm.
Like it's the like the major Pennsylvania German like like healing magic book. Like
Mm.
it's called Powwows, and so it's the idea of the book is that it's full of like mostly biblically based cures like for common problems or for like bad luck or for like being under a curse, that kind of thing. But the idea is that the book itself is a talisman against harm. And so if you have one in the walls of your house will come under no harm.
Oh, I love that.
If you carry one with you, no harm shall come to you, like this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I've just been carrying it around. And there's a great, my personal ailment is often headaches. So there's a great one to banish headaches. And so I just memorize this little, uh, almost like a prayer, but yeah. And so it's great. But there's like, Abraxas stuff in here, like weird, like it's just like kind of like this syncretic, like combination of, uh, Christianity and like folk magic and
Mm.
like home remedies, the kind of thing that was kind of brewing in Pennsylvania in like 1820 or whatever. So but it's like, it kind of is like the foundation of like hoodoo and like this like weird folk magic thing. So I've been I just have like a modern, because they're so hard to find now because everyone wants one because it's like this, it's a heritage thing, but for like Pennsylvania Germans, but it's also like a key, it's like a key American grimoire almost. Like
Mm.
it's like in some ways the first truly like homegrown American grimoire. Originally it was in German, I think. I think the author translated it, but yeah. So that's kind of one of my recent adoptions of trying to believe that magic or at least luck are real.
Nice. Nice. Okay, maybe we'll bounce over to Patreon now. I'd like to talk a little bit about how this Trevor James Constable book kind of employs some ceremonial magic-esque techniques. CE5, paging Dr. Greer type stuff as well,
Oh
to
no.
psychically kind of bring down or bring yourself into the realm of UFOs. George Van Tassel doing that kind of stuff with the Ashtar command as well. So if you're not a Patreon subscriber, check out patreon.com/consensusunreality, $5 a month. You get access to our regular exclusive episodes. It's where we do most of our content. You get access to our full episode archive. And for $10 a month, you could join our print club tier, receive our printed Journal of Shells and other printed and recorded media coming to you this year. So we've got
Yeah.
some really cool stuff cooking for that. Not just our printed Journal of Shells, which is contemporary writings and also archival materials that we pull and curate, but also some bonus printed items, but also working in some other recorded materials. What could that possibly mean? You got to hang on the
I don't
line
know.
for that, but there's good stuff coming. So check that out, patreon.com/consensusunreality. And now we're bouncing up to Patreon. Thanks for listening.